Today I was talking in the WeChat groups, so trying to gather questions. So I'll start off with, I know that IOHK is talking to Shanghai universities about kind of like blockchain education and stuff. What do you see as kind of the China strategy going forward?
Yeah, so mostly that's being led by Lei. He's one of the community managers, and he's in charge of that. And also Nathan Kaiser, the current chairman of the Cardano Foundation, understands quite a bit of China. Even though he's a Swiss lawyer, he speaks Mandarin.
Yeah.
He's married to a Chinese woman, so you always think close to home.
Mm-hmm.
So right now, Lei and Nathan have been having a lot of discussions about doing some form of a tour in China, going to various different cities and kind of evangelizing Cardano.
Mm-hmm.
Moving forward, we've always been education first in a lot of our country opening approaches.
Mm-hmm.
So working with Chinese academics and Chinese universities
Mm-hmm.
probably makes the most sense.
Mm-hmm.
The other thing about China is it's really helpful to have some form of commercial relationship with large Chinese companies. So we've had some discussions with Huawei back in the day. They provided some funding for the blockchain lab in Edinburgh. And there's a litany of options we have there in that marketplace. So we'll just see what makes sense. It'll be some composition of working with universities, doing a tour, and getting some local Chinese partners, and that'll open the country up a bit. And then from
what did you want to be when you were growing up?
I wanted to be a surgeon.
A surgeon?
Yeah, my dad's a doctor, and my brother's a doctor, and my grandfather was a doctor, and my uncle was a doctor. So everybody in the family was all into medicine. I almost became a doctor. I did all the stuff you were supposed to do, like EMURGO and all these things, but I never developed the passion that they had for it. And also, I was much better at mathematics, and I kind of don't like people. So if you're good at math and you don't like people, you probably shouldn't be a doctor. You should go do something in the sciences, and that's where I ended up.
In your childhood, did you have like a role model or like a childhood hero that you looked up to?
I always admired Bill Gates when I was a kid. There was just something about that guy, that gusto and that bravado, that was just pretty amazing to me. And everybody kind of idolizes Steve Jobs or something, but Gates to me was the better entrepreneur. Because this guy had kind of everything already set up for him, and then he decided to risk everything and go in a different direction. He was at Harvard. His father is senior partner in a law firm. His mom was a pretty prominent gal in business. So all he had to do was just finish his degree at Harvard, go to law school, and then he would have had $1 million a year job waiting for him in Washington. Instead, he said, I'm just going to go quit everything, drop out of Harvard, and go set up a software company. In that case, it was in New Mexico, in Albuquerque. And at a time where people didn't even know what software was. They're like, are you selling sheets? What are you doing? So there's a huge risk. And even in starting that company, they did things that normal entrepreneurs didn't do. For example, they called up MITS, which was their first commercial client, and they claimed that they actually had a programming language for a computer they knew nothing about and they had never seen or touched. And they said, it'll be ready in just a little bit. We're doing some final configuration. So then they had to just learn how to write a programming language and write it and make it work. And they didn't even know it was going to work until they actually demoed it at the client in New Mexico. So they literally showed up with a teletype tape and hoped to God that when they plugged it in, the thing would work. So there was just a magic to that company and an intensity to that company that I truly admired. You re-asked the question.
Okay, so I remember last time at Miami IOHK Summit, you almost met Bill Gates, but you guys were next to very close proximity.
Right. We were the hotel that we were at right next door in the bar. Bill Gates was there, and my director of marketing, our product marketer Haley, she happened to be at that bar, and she saw Bill Gates. And she kept frantically calling me, but I was actually in a meeting, ironically, with Ken Kodama.
Mm-hmm.
So I always get to tell Ken, hey, I decided not to meet Bill Gates, just to be in a meeting with you. You see how powerful Ken is. You tend to get into cults of personality. There's great lessons in the narrative arc of people's lives. Like Norman Borlaug, for example. No one here has heard about that guy. You ask 10 people, they say, who the hell is that guy? Saved 1 billion lives. 1 billion. Because he was a big guy in fertilizer, and he gave up all these innovations and on the agriculture side that allowed him to solve tons of famines in India and Mexico and all throughout the world. And as a consequence, if you sum up all the people who historically died from these things, it was about 1 billion people.
That's a big impact.
But it doesn't quite penetrate. It's not like a Beyonce or something, and that's okay. It's not about the name. It's about the story and the lessons from that story. How did they do it? What challenges did they have to overcome? What was that hero's journey that they went through? And there's something empowering in knowing that regardless if your name is remembered or not, your actions will live on. Things that you've built or innovated.
How you inspire.
Exactly. Like if you look at the top 10 technologies we tend to use, like who invented the digital camera? Who invented VoIP? You know, these types of things. I use video calls every day. If you went to 1,000 people and you asked them who invented this, they wouldn't know, right? And so, but yet it's still there and it impacts our lives. There's no greater example of that than Satoshi Nakamoto for Bitcoin.
VoIP.
It built our entire industry, and we have actually no idea who that person is. We never will really know who that.
All right, so we're gonna jump into lightning round.
Sure.
Favorite fiction book recently?
Ooh, that's a good question. I've been trying to get back through the George R.R. Martin's Game of Thrones books now that the entire series is over, because I actually might rewrite the ending for the last two seasons.
A lot of people watch.
I was so angry. I was like, none of these characters are behaving the way that they're behaving. So I figured maybe if I ever have the time, I can get back through that series.
Favorite number?
Favorite number, 5.
Favorite movie ever?
Ooh, that's a good one. It depends on the category, but my favorite drama was There Will Be Blood.
There Will Be Blood. Coffee or tea?
Coffee.
Beer or wine?
Neither. Whiskey.
Whiskey.
Yeah, I'm a whiskey man.
Oh man.
I have a cow. So that's
Invisibility or super strength?
invisibility.
Favorite holiday?
Thanksgiving.
If you were given the opportunity to fly into space, given today's technology, would you take it?
Yes.
What's the best piece of advice you've received?
You know, the best piece of advice I ever got was know when you can slow down. You know, life has this way of convincing you you have to do it now. You ratchet up the stress. You work 80 hours, 100 hours weeks, and you burn a lot of your energy up. But the reality is, a lot of the time, you're spending all that time because either you don't know what you're doing, you don't know the path you're going down, or you're fixing mistakes that you made in the past. And all you really need to do is just take a step back and kind of calmly reflect and think clearly about what you're doing, where you're going, and often not only save time, but actually remove all the stress. You know, if it doesn't get done, it doesn't get done. All of the papers do. Well, if it doesn't go in, it doesn't go in. You know, so there's a huge value to slowing things down a lot. You know, the other thing is know your priorities. Again, that's hard when you're young because you don't have priorities yet. You're experimenting, you're exploring. Well, if that's the case, then don't set yourself up for failure. What people end up doing is they get the wrong priorities. Oh, I want to be rich, or I want to be married by this age, or I want this or that. And maybe that is a great priority, but for the vast majority of people, if they're not sure what their priority is, they're just taking priorities from other people, their parents, or friends, or whatever it might be, and they go and chase a dragon they really shouldn't chase. And the last piece of advice I got, which I think is tremendously valuable, is that we all go on our own hero's journey. There's always a dragon we have to slay, you know, and find that dragon, and then it creates meaning in your life. So for Norman, the guy who did all the fertilizer, you know, he was a botanist. He understood a lot about how plants grew, and he could have had a very meaningful academic career just in there. But he always felt that all of this would have been useless if he didn't wake up and go and take it to the world. Now, he didn't particularly care whether people thought he was crazy or not, because it wasn't approval or name recognition or anything he was looking for. He just wanted this to exist and be there. And so for many of us, we have to find that meaning in that purpose, whatever it might be. It can be something small like in your community, or it can be something grand, like I'm going to go change an entire political system in my particular country. And you never define success from a meaningless vanity metric, like how many people or how much money I make. You just define success in that if you look back over the arc of your life, did you make a difference? You know, last thing is, so slow down is definitely important. It's definitely important to really think through what you're doing and have the right priorities and goals. And then you need to find a big challenge, whether it's local or global, and go chase that challenge for a little while. Make sure it has a beginning, a middle, and an end. And then you have meaning to your life. You know, for me, Elon Musk, it was he wanted to do something in the internet, he wanted to do something with energy, and he wanted to do something in space. And he's actually done all three now. He did PayPal, he did Tesla, he did SpaceX. So whether they're a brand like that, or they're small, like I just like to clean up the river in my next to my house or something, go do that, and that's going to end up being a big challenge.
Yeah, because my next question was like, what advice would you give to blockchain entrepreneurs? But you pretty much summed it up. The value of slowing down, getting your priorities, finding a purpose, and yeah, any other
Right.
to
I
blockchain
think-
entrepreneurs.
I think the best piece of advice too, along that framework, is read biographies. Everything that's happened in our world, in our lives, has happened before in some way. Yeah, our lives are not really so much different from Ulysses S. Grant's or from Rockefeller's or any of these people come before. And the advantage we have is those lives are incredibly well documented. So just every month if you can, and it's when you're young you do have this time, instead of going to the bar or going on the next date or drinking, just take the time to read a biography. It's very much underappreciated. Everybody's always looking forward. They read some book like Peter Thiel's book, or they read Horowitz's book, or some big venture capitalist. They say, oh, if I read this, it'll be a step-by-step manual for how I can solve problems in the future. But the problems in the future only exist because of the past. And likely all the things you're wanting to solve today were problems yesterday. So if you look to the past, you can actually get a huge amount of inspiration. And within
Yeah, so a lot of valuable lessons from biographies. In biographies. Final question: favorite Twitter troll?
MetaMask.
Thank you, Charles.
Thank you so much.
Appreciate it.
Cheers.